Yo, what is up guys? Ethan here back in another video, and today we're back with 2022 college football predictions. And as you can tell by the title and thumbnail, we're going to be talking about the Utah Utes today. If you haven't already, hit that like and subscribe button, as I would really appreciate it. Entering this season, Utah has tremendous hype, mainly because they're returning a lot of their star players. They're 58th in returning talent, as overall they're returning 66% of their team, 71% of their offense, which is 50th in the nation, and returning 61% of their starters, which is 88th in the nation. They're going to be returning their starting quarterback Cam Rising, as that's probably going to be the main reason why this team is so hyped up entering this season. And it seems for the last few years, Utah has struggled to find and maintain a starting quarterback. And to start off the year, it was Charlie Brewer. He disappointed. He's at Liberty now. Cam Rising then came in that San Diego State game, and then since then, Utah went on a tremendous streak. Maybe they did upset Oregon. Well, they whooped Oregon twice, beat them in the Pac-12 championship. That's hard to say because I'm an Oregon fan. And then they went on to the Rose Bowl and almost beat Ohio State, and of course they lost in dramatic fashion. But at the end of the day, Utah was a great team last year. And looking on paper, they're returning a lot of their stars. Cam Rising, like I just said, as last year, he had 20 touchdowns and only 5 interceptions, throwing a little under 2,500 yards. He's only going to be improving with his accuracy this year, but he's not really going to be passing this much, in my opinion, as you're going to be run heavy with this offense this year. Tavion Thomas, who I think is one of, if not by far, the most underrated running back in college football this year, returning for his junior season. As last year he had over 1,100 yards and 21 touchdowns. That is ridiculous. TJ Pledger, their second running back, he declared for the NFL draft. He's gone now. I think he's with the Cardinals, if I'm not mistaken. So your backup is Micah Bernard. And Tavion Thomas and Micah Bernard, that's a top 10 running back duo in all of college football. Micah Bernard had 500 yards last year with 2 touchdowns. Those stats are definitely going to be improving with this offense. It wouldn't surprise me if both Tavion Thomas and Micah Bernard both get over 1,000 yards or a little under around that 900 mark. As looking at this depth chart, besides those two, there's really no key number 1 running back, maybe besides Chris Curry. I think it's going to be a run-heavy offense with Micah Bernard and Tavion Thomas. Their top wide receiver last year in Britton Covey, who's also, in my opinion, the best returner in all of college football last year. He was a redshirt senior, so he wouldn't have been able to return this year, and he's not on this roster. So your main target is Devon Valle, as he returns this year. But the main targets for Cam Rising in this offense is that tight end duo between Brant Kuth and Dalton Kincaid. Definitely messed up on one of those names. The offensive line is pretty good. It's not one of the top in the Pac-12. It's around that 4 or 5 range, maybe 3. Oregon has the best. But that offensive line is pretty good. But the main thing about Utah that's been talked about for this team for so long is this defense. And of course, the main guy in that defense from last season was Devin Lloyd. He is gone now, as he was drafted in the NFL. He's put up ridiculous numbers last year for Utah, so it's definitely going to be a pretty big loss for this Utah defense now that Devin Lloyd is not there. But they're definitely going to be returning some of their key guys. Also, Mika Tafoye is also out. So basically, Utah's top 2 defenders last season are both out the window. But their best defender this year, in my opinion, is got to be Clark Phillips, the cornerback returning. He was a highly rated cornerback. He committed to Utah a few years ago. Last year, he had 61 total tackles and 2 interceptions. Those numbers are only going to improve. This defense, I'm going to be honest, I really don't know the star players besides Clark Phillips in this defense. But overall, Utah always seems to find a different guy each and every single year to be that face of the defense and really prevail this defense into a top-tier defense. Maybe it's Clark Phillips this year. Maybe it's another guy on the depth chart. Who really knows? But overall, the front line of Utah is really good. The linebackers always seem to be really good. You do get a senior transfer, Mohamed Dabate, coming in from Florida. He could be that Devin Lloyd replacement this year. And then, of course, I just talked about Clark Phillips, as I'm really high on him. He could easily have over 4 interceptions this season. But the difference between Utah last year and Utah this year is the schedule. Besides USC, as you look at this schedule, all your biggest games are on the road. At Florida's a massive game. At UCLA's a massive game. At Oregon's a massive game. At Washington State is a Thursday night game. That could be a massive upset in the making, but we'll get to that when we get there. The first game, though, you're at Florida, you go down to Gainesville. This is going to be that 7 o'clock ESPN game. At this point, if Notre Dame is getting blown out by Ohio State, everyone's eyes is going to be on this game to see if Utah is true contenders or not. In my personal opinion, the Utah players are all used to this Rocky Mountain view. Well, the weather up there. They're not going to be ready for this hot, humid, and ruggy weather down in Florida in the swamp. I think Billy Napier, for his first game, is going to want to put a real impression going down in the SEC, proving himself he is a capable coach in the SEC. And I know I love Kyle Whittingham as a coach. I think Florida beats Utah in a very, very, very close game. The spread is basically a pick 'em at this point. I think Florida may be favored by 1 point. I could be wrong about that. It's no more than 2 points on the spread. This game is going to be a back and forth game in my opinion. Probably going to be a little bit on the low scoring end. I think Florida wins this game by like a field goal. Maybe this is going to be like a 23-20 victory for the Gators. But overall, this is going to be a thrilling game to watch. And after that first game you lose, you host Southern Utah. This is an easy whooping. Give me the Utes. That next game, you finish off a home-and-home series you had starting last year with San Diego State. San Diego State actually upset Utah last year. But this year, they're not going to beat you again, especially since it's in Salt Lake City. Give me the Utes in this one, as I also do think San Diego State will kind of fall off a little bit compared to last year. That next game, you're at Arizona State. And personally, I'm not a big fan of this Arizona State team. Jaden Daniels transferred out. You did get Emory Jones. That is a nice pickup, but Jaden Daniels is way better than Emory Jones in my personal opinion. Also, with all these rumors, basically the entire coaching staff at Arizona State left besides Herm Edwards. I'll actually be surprised if Herm Edwards is the head football coach for Arizona State for starting next season. So, I think Utah, with all these rumors going around Arizona State, I just don't believe they're going to have a great year. Utah wins this game in Tempe. Next game, you're hosting Oregon State. And then last year, Oregon State actually upset y'all in Corvallis. But this year, it's in Salt Lake City. I think Oregon State is not going to be as good as they were last year. They will make a bowl game, but I just don't believe they're going to be up to par as they were last year. Utah will beat them at home. Now we get into a stretch where from here to the Oregon game, I think it's just very overall tough. Maybe excluding Arizona. First game, you're at UCLA. This is a home game for UCLA. I think either way, this game would have been close, but I think Kyle Whittingham outcoaches Chip Kelly in this matchup, and I think Clark Phillips is going to be too much for that receiving core, even though UCLA is going to be a run-heavy team with Zach Charbonnet. I think Utah finds a way to win this game. Give me the Utes. And now, this is probably the biggest game for the Pac-12 all season long. USC at Utah. USC, we already know all the headlines. Lincoln Riley, Caleb Williams, Jordan Addison, the transfer portal, Travis Dye, no defense. We all know what it is. And then we know all the headlines for Utah. Two of the top three teams are playing in this game because the top Pac-12 teams are obviously Utah, USC, and Oregon. I made this a very evident point in my Clemson prediction. This is one of those games where the home team I would lean towards. And in this instance, Utah is the home team. This is going to be a back and forth game. I think Tavion Thomas is going to absolutely destroy that Trojans defense. I would not be surprised if overall as a team, Utah has well over 300 rushing yards in this game versus that defense. Overall, I think Utah will find a way to win at home. Give me the Utes. This should be the main game on that week. This is probably going to be game day that week unless both of these teams disappoint or two surprising teams level up. This is going to be a thrilling game. Utah wins a thriller. Then after a thrilling back-to-back games versus the two LA schools, you have a bye week. And now you probably have the biggest trap game of your schedule at Washington State. I'm actually a really high believer in this Washington State team. I've seen people predict this team to be a 4-win team. I just don't believe it. This team is going to be fully around how the coaching and Cam Ward are. Cam Ward, of course, was a transfer from Incarnate Wood. But personally, I think Utah is going to have too much talent in this team compared to Washington State. This could be a close game. It's one of those trap games, especially since it is a Thursday night late game. Utah wins a close one. After 3 straight close games, you host Arizona. I think that's a relatively easy game. Give me the Utes in that one. Next week, you host Stanford. Stanford, I'm just having a love-hate relationship with them right now. At some point in the year, I can see this going as a 3-9 team, and then I can look at the schedules like, okay, they could go like 7-5, maybe even 8-4 and surprise everybody. Either way, on how good Stanford is, I think Utah wins this game at home. And up to this point, Utah has only lost 1 game at Florida. But now, you're probably going to go to your biggest road game, well, second biggest road game, and that's at Oregon. I could be a little biased here, but I think Oregon wins this game. Now, I will say this. If this was in Salt Lake City again, I think Utah wins this game in a close one. Either way, it's not going to be like the past 2 games we had last year where both were Utah blowouts. Either way, this is going to be a very close game. I think Oregon is going to dedicate this game to Spencer Webb, as Utah dedicated their season last year to Ty Jordan and Aaron Lowe. This is probably Oregon's biggest game on their schedule after the Georgia game. I think the Ducks pull it out at home. Give me the Ducks in that one. And now your final game of the season is at your rivals in Boulder in the Colorado Buffaloes. I'm not high on Colorado at all. I think Carl Dorrell at this point is going to be fired. Even though this is a rivalry, I think Utah-Colorado is actually a very underrated rivalry. I think the Utes pull it out on the road. And your final record for this Utah team is going to be 10-2 with losses at Florida and at Oregon. Now, I do think with this schedule, with wins at UCLA versus USC and at Washington State, and maybe even San Diego State, depending on how well they play in the Mountain West, I think Utah, even with this 10-2 record, will still end up being a top 10 team at the end of the season. Of course, with 2 losses, they're not going to make the college football playoff. But I think at the end of the day, Utah is going to match up to par as they were last year. They could make the Pac-12 championship. Maybe it's a disappointing year for you, but personally, I think the ceiling of this team is 11-1. I do think you slip somewhere up in the schedule. The floor for this team, I actually think is going to be 8-4. You can lose at Florida, and then you'll lose one of the LA games. Then you have an upset loss at Washington State, and then you lose at Oregon. So I think the ceiling for this team is 11-1. The floor for this team is 8-4. My prediction is going to be 10-2. Either way, Kyle Whittingham is going to have another great season with this Utes team. Tavion Thomas and Micah Bernard are going to have ridiculous numbers once again. And yeah, it's going to be overall a great season for the Utes. Like always, I hope you enjoyed this video. Like, share, subscribe, push the notifications on so you don't miss any other video. Michigan predictions are going to be later tonight. And yeah, like always, have a good day. Peace out.